Welcome back! I'm Mama Dr. Jones, a board-certified OBGYN, a mom to 4, and today we're reacting to Jessica Kent's I Had a Baby in Prison. You all have been asking me to react to this for a year since she uploaded it. I finally did it, and it is incredibly emotional. I shed some tears, but there's so much to be learned. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications. If you'd like to stick around, we would love to have you, and let's jump into the video.
For those of you that don't know, I am a recovering addict with 7 years sober. I also served time in prison, and that is kind of where our story begins today. So I got arrested in October 2011 on a set of drug charges and gun charges. 2 or 3 weeks after my arrest, I started to feel sick. I was going through detoxing. I was detoxing off of meth and Roxy's, but I started to feel a different kind of sick, one that I wasn't used to. My stomach was hurting. I was getting period cramps, but not having a period. All I remember is sitting on this nurse's station, and I'm coming off of drugs, hard drugs, drugs that I use intravenously. My withdrawals are very serious. This nurse comes up to me. She is very busy, has an entire hallway of girls waiting for her. She comes up to me and says, "Oh, well, that's the problem. You're pregnant. You can go back now." And I'm like, Excuse me, I know you're busy, but no, that's wrong. You must have mixed me up with someone else. I'm not pregnant. Now, I was on birth control at this time, and I just thought, like, this chick is crazy. I'm not pregnant. So I went back to my cell in complete denial, and I went back to sleep. A couple hours went by, and a CO comes to my cell door. She's like, "I need to move you because you're pregnant." And she yelled this, you guys.
That is definitely not okay. People still have a right to protect their health information as an inmate. So that is not something that should happen. It's also, as I'm sure she's about to explain, dangerous for people to have these things recognized about them when they're in prison or in jail.
I was a drug dealer in Fort Smith, Arkansas. Half of the jail was people that I sold to and that liked me and that was kind of cool with me. The other half of the jail was people that baby daddy, and I'll leave those stories in the comment section down below, had cheated on me with, or they were not cool with him, or they had some kind of vendetta against him. So I had a lot of enemies. I did have support, I did have backup, but I had enemies too. And the one thing you don't want in prison, at this time was jail, was for people to see a weakness in you. You don't want people to know that you're vulnerable for any reason, because now you're letting people know that there's a way to get to me. There's a way to hurt me.
You still have a right to privacy of your health information if you are in jail. You lose a lot of rights when you go to jail for a crime that you committed, but you still have a right to protect your health information from the people around you. That absolutely is not something that should be happening.
I spent 3 months at this county jail with no prenatal vitamins. I didn't want to believe that I was pregnant. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want people to know. The guards finally were like, "Oh, Kent isn't going anywhere, so we need to take her to a doctor." Now, my doctor's appointments, you guys, were so embarrassing. This is not their fault. I broke the law. I deserve to go to prison. This is my fault. I take full responsibility for my actions. But I just want you guys to see, like, I want you guys to understand what it's like to be pregnant in jail and then prison. They would take me out in my orange clothes, leg chains at this time, even though I was pregnant, they did not care, a belly chain, and handcuffs in the front at a free clinic that everyone else went to. I didn't get to go in the back door. I had to sit in the same waiting room as everyone else. People would take pictures of me. People were talking about me, like whispering, like, "Oh, what is she here for?" Like, "Oh, what'd she do? I wonder who that is." Like, it was so embarrassing. The nurses would be talking about me right outside of the door. I could hear what they were saying. I was also a very, very bad addict. I had track marks all up and down my arms. Thankfully, I was only a couple of weeks pregnant when I got arrested. So my daughter is healthy and she's fine and everything's good, but we'll get there.
Yeah, this is really interesting. She's right. She's lucky that she wasn't on those hard drugs in pregnancy, because those can be very dangerous. But withdrawal in early pregnancy can be very dangerous as well. So I'm glad that everything worked out for her. As far as having people come into the clinic like this, I've had patients who were currently in jail or prison, and she's right. I mean, that's exactly how it works. It's hard on them, but it's kind of part of the deal if you've broken the law and you're in jail. People talking about her outside the room or making snarky comments within the medical team is absolutely unacceptable. And if you happen to watch this, Jessica, I'm sorry from a medical standpoint that anybody would do something like that, because that's unacceptable. We aren't there to judge people or to make people feel bad or to gossip about people. Nobody deserves that. I mean, you should be able to keep at least some of your dignity. And that's just a mark of a bad medical office. I mean, you just shouldn't have people doing that. It's just not okay in general.
At this point, I'm a little over 6 months pregnant, and it's time for me to go to prison. They shackle me. They shackle my feet, they shackle my stomach, they shackle my hands. They put me into a van with other people. They tell me I can't go to the bathroom. If you're 6 months pregnant, there is no waiting. Like, you have to pee every 20 minutes, especially if the baby is positioned a certain way. That was not a luxury that I had, you guys. And again, I'm not saying that, oh, feel bad for me, this is so horrible. I broke the law, I deserve to go to prison. I just want to walk you through what it's like to have a baby in prison.
Despite the fact that most states don't have rules against this, ACOG, the American College of OBGYN, has specifically stated that they are against the use of shackles in pregnancy. Now, this is more important in the clinical setting and specifically during labor and delivery, but even that means that it happens sometimes. And so, I don't know how, if you're pregnant, should it be that you don't have to be shackled just like everybody else if you're being moved between a county jail and a prison? I don't know, but certainly when you are in the physician office or in the hospital for something, there should be an ability, both because it's easier for us to make a diagnosis and because the patient deserves to have adequate medical care that is thorough, that patients are not supposed to be, in most cases, shackled. And most of us feel that in our office setting and in the hospital setting, that's appropriate.
When we finally get to the prison, I'm walked into intake. The correctional officer says to me, I have to squat and cough like all the rest of the girls, but I'm trying to bend over and do it the way that she wants, but I'm also 6 months pregnant. I have a huge stomach and I almost fell over. During my time in county jail, I was also pushed and tripped, and people tried to hurt me and my child. Now we're in prison and I'm trying to bend over and squat and cough for her the way that she wants me to, but I can't because my stomach is in the way and I physically can't do what she wants. That makes the guards scream and yell at me, and they think that I'm hiding things in my body cavity, which of course I was not. Finally, I get through the intake process and they put me in a hallway. I have to sit cross-legged, 6 months pregnant, for over 6 hours. I wasn't transferred from a maximum security prison to a medium security prison where other women were pregnant. Now, we all handle trauma and pain and grief differently, but I believed in my heart of hearts that because I was watching other women go have their babies in the hospital and come back within 24 hours, that if that girl did it, I can do it. If that girl could handle this and be pregnant and have that baby and come back to prison, there's no doubt in my mind that I can do that.
So I think the last statistic I saw on this was that about 4% of women in state prisons are pregnant at any given time. So this is a not uncommon occurrence that she's discussing. And, some of these things are things that I think, I would be really horrible for anyone and probably exacerbated when you're pregnant. And some of them are genuinely things that I think maybe they should consider some better accommodations for people. I mean, her discussing having trouble bending over the right way and it making the guards really angry is very real. I mean, you can't move exactly the same way as somebody who doesn't have a 25-week baby in their uterus. So I think that she's talking about a lot of things. Some of them are things that I don't know that we could help. And it doesn't sound like she thinks all of them should be changed. But certainly some of them, it seems like, especially with a 4 to 5% population in a state prison, should be addressed better. And the legal system and the medical system, honestly, all do a really poor job of addressing these things as a whole.
A lot of the women knew that my daughter was going into DHS custody because I didn't have family in the state of Arkansas. They tried to tell me over and over again, you will never get custody of your daughter back. You will lose. If you're in prison for over 1 year after your daughter is born, you will lose. I was pregnant and emotional, and that was not very good for my mental health to hear that. 2012 at 4:30 in the morning, I started to get really intense back pain, and I tried to tell other people that I was fine. I'm like, no, I slept wrong. Like, it's a prison mattress. I'm definitely not in labor. I'm totally fine. And I walked down to the chow hall. Every step was more painful. As I got closer and closer to the chow hall, I tried even harder to hold back my pain. I'm now in active labor, but I've never been in labor before, so I'm thinking that I can just wait it out another day. I don't have to go to the hospital today. I think I'm okay. I sit down with my tray and I try to pick up my spork. It's prison, and I drop it because a contraction hit me so hard. I'm grinding my teeth. I am trying not to scream out loud. I'm basically shaking, holding in this pain. And someone that was sitting next to me said, girl, I have to take you to the infirmary. You're in labor, you're in labor. And she calls the cop over, and I'm so mad, you guys. I don't know why, but I just didn't want to tell them I was having a baby because I can't have a baby because then I'm going to lose the baby. And I just wasn't mentally prepared or mentally ready for it.
Exactly what she said is what was going through my head is she doesn't want to admit that she's in labor because that means that the baby gets taken away. And it's heartbreaking and it's terrible. And I can't imagine being in that position. And I'm really happy to be seeing her on this side where she's gotten her life together and it sounds like has custody of her child. But I think sometimes it's hard to think about these things because you think, okay, this person, they committed a crime, they deserve to be in prison. But having your child taken away against your will is a very traumatic situation, whether you are in prison for something that you did or not. And there's a lot of argument here as to if that is cruel and unusual punishment. And I'm not going to make a statement towards that. I don't know enough about all of this to say what is politically the correct way to look at this. But I would say that this is trauma that people who aren't pregnant when they enter into prison, they don't generally go through something like this. This is quite different because it's not only emotional and physical separation, but this is a physiologic process that happens to your body and then the physical separation. And that's really difficult. And I can't imagine what it felt like to go through that. Y'all wanted me to react to this and it's sad. I mean, I'm glad I'm watching it. It's making me think a lot, but it's hard to watch.
The guards, very cold, say to me, "Can you walk, Kent?" And I'm like, yes, I can walk. And they're like, walk to the infirmary. And I just walked down there in full active labor. No one got a wheelchair for me. No one helped me. I walked down by myself, holding my stomach. Every single step to the infirmary, which was pretty far, was so painful. I finally get to the infirmary door and I stand outside the door waiting for them to pop the door. There is a process. I had to be buzzed into the infirmary, buzzed into another door, and then another door. So I finally get to the last door where I can enter the infirmary, and I'm standing outside the door and I just want to fall down and scream. I'm in so much pain. The nurses take one look at me and kind of just assume that I'm in labor. They didn't check me out. They said, okay, well, we have to wait till shift change at 7:30 for you to go to the hospital. And I thought, what? Shift change? Like,
yeah, I thought that too. I just spit on myself. Yeah, that's not okay. I mean, it sounds like somebody doesn't want to take her because they don't want to get off late. But if she is in labor, like she's describing, which we're going to take her at her word that she is, there is absolutely no reason that she shouldn't be transported to the hospital. You absolutely retain your right to adequate and thorough medical care, even as a prisoner. This is bananas.
I love how Mama Dr. Jones explained both the psychological and the physical. I'm not a mom myself, and I cannot put myself in Jessica's shoes or even Mama Jones being a mom. And it's just heartbreaking that she did not feel safe enough to let her fellow inmates know that she's in labor because she didn't want her child taken away. And I feel like that's just an indication that we do need to change our prison systems. I don't want to get too much into it in the comments. If this is to be discussed, I wish for you guys to be respectful of each other. But it's just, I can't imagine the pain she must be going through right now in active labor and trying to hide it. It's just mind-blowing. But she is a tough woman, I can tell you. Jessica is a very tough woman, and I am just breaking for her. But she also deserves a great round of applause, as well as other prison moms out there.
Angry for her. And if I was a doctor accepting her and she told me this, I would be so mad at them.
Like, I understand there's a process here, but they're like, we're not going to take you. We'll wait for a shift change. And I thought, I'm alone. I don't know what to do. I'm in crazy amounts of pain. I've never had a baby before. I'm terrified. They put me in this wheelchair with a like kind of, it kind of looks like a puppy pad underneath me because I'm bleeding. No one talks to me, helps me, asks me if I'm okay for almost 3 hours. I'm just sitting there alone. I can't call my mom. I can't call my family. I can't call anyone and tell them I'm in labor because it's a security risk. And I sit there in active labor alone, bleeding everywhere for almost 3 hours.
I am horrified. 3 hours alone while bleeding, by the way. All pregnancy complications are slightly increased by just being imprisoned during a pregnancy. That is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. There are a few things that you absolutely retain your right to while you are in prison, and adequate medical care to ensure the health and safety of yourself and your baby are one of them.
Finally, an ambulance comes and they take me to the hospital. I was very fortunate to get a correctional officer with me that was very kind to me. The emergency room checks me out in Little Rock. They say, yes, you're 6 centimeters dilated. We have to get you upstairs. I go upstairs. My daughter was born at 3 p.m. The nurses during my labor were condescending, were mean, they didn't talk to me. They talked to the correctional officer that was by my shoulder. They wouldn't talk to me directly at all. Can she have this? Can she have that? Is she doing that? Is she okay? Is the baby going here? No one asked me anything. So finally, when my daughter was born, I had told myself that if I don't look at her, I won't love her. And if you just take her away, then I'll be okay.
This is absolutely breaking my heart. And I'm mad at her medical team for not treating her as a human. You're still a human, even in prison. I'm mad at her team from the prison for not getting her adequate care at a time that it should have been done. This is horrible.
She came out, I saw like a glimpse of her, and then I just looked this way and I wanted them to take her away because I knew I had to say goodbye. And I thought if I just rip the Band-Aid, I'll be okay. So I turned to this correctional officer. She's on my right side and I'm crying and I just don't want to look at this baby. She said, girl, you better look at that baby. And I did, and oh my God. She's so beautiful and she was so little. She was 6 pounds, 9 ounces, and I was so happy. I immediately fell in love with this baby. This beautiful little baby was mine.
I'm really thankful that she at least had a CO there who treated her as a human. This is hard for me to watch because we don't get a lot of training on this in medical school and residency, and I've had some patients that have been prisoners, and I think that I treated them appropriately, and I would hope that I would never be condescending to a patient because of their life situation, but it's really making me take more note of that. And I think that this is something that I talk about a lot on the internet, is how listening to people's stories has been very helpful to me in making sure that I understand how my bedside manner is interpreted and how my actions are coming across to patients. And so this is actually really helpful to me in that.
Yes, this is absolutely horrible.